We are live, I think. So welcome, everyone. Um, day three, right, of our Ethical Gem Fair Tucson 2021. I can't believe we've made it 3 days in. I'm not as exhausted as I think I would normally be if this was actually
A real show.
a real show, because there would have been lots of evening entertainment and some other things going on as well. So I think we're still pretty fresh, hopefully. I'm Monica Stephenson, and I'm the founder of Anza Gems. Prior to that, I was a blogger at idazzle.com, and I've been in the industry a really long time, but probably just a gem dealer for the last maybe 5-6 years or so. I call myself the accidental gem dealer because I took a trip to East Africa with a documentary film. And what I found there was really kind of profoundly changing for me, to see where gemstones really come from and how hard people are working to pull them out of the ground, and yet not really having great representation in the rest of the gem supply chain. I've been to Tucson many times and JCK and all these trade shows, but yet I don't see any. I see very few African faces when I'm in those environments. So what I found was that people there are incredibly determined and incredibly knowledgeable about what they're doing, but they lack access to education and some resources that make it possible, I think, to fully participate in kind of the more Western side of kind of the distribution part of the supply chain. So my business is kind of dedicated to how do we reinvest in those communities and actually help kind of elevate and empower people to participate more. It's been quite a journey. So most people, I feel like, are pretty familiar with me, but Quendi, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you are working on. You come from sort of a pretty famous gemstone family, I think, with Brian and Kendra, and but I'd love to know more about like what you are working on as an individual, as a designer, in your own right.
Thank you, Monica. So nice to be here, and especially alongside you. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure. I grew up in the business, coming to Tucson every year since I was a baby, and working the booths for about 27 years. So
27? Wait. How old? You're
Jay can attest to this because he knows. We were part of the young crew that first started coming, and we worked. You know, he's a third generation, but yes, he said in the comments. Yeah. We back then, it was just a few of us that were young in the GJX. And we started, we connected, and we were from gem families. So yes, I do have a long history in this industry, and I will admit I took some hiatus, a few times jumping in and out, but it always pulled me back because it is a very special and magical world. It's something that it's an incredible thing that gemstones unite everyone, from completely different parts of the world, and to all unite in the desert, and just to refer back to Tucson, because that's where we all met, and it's a very fascinating world. So it always pulled me back, and I always helped my family, and then I would go off and do my own thing, and then I would come back, and I would go back and forth. And
it always pulls us back in, doesn't it? Like
it does. Exactly.
You can try to leave, but you can't actually.
You can. It pulls you back, and I think what really did pull me back for the final pull was the ethical side of. I felt there was a true demand for this more ethical side of the industry. Everyone started to ask more questions and be more curious about, the origin stories of gemstones and what does it mean and where are they coming from and who's involved, and and that became something that I felt was a responsibility of us as almost like middle people. I mean, we do. My family, we're from the ground up. So we do mining, we do cutting stones, we're jewelers, we're artists, we do kind of the whole gamut. But I feel that there was a true need for that transparency with a through line. People want to know, we would talk to so many designers and people are curious, and with the access to information, and that this digital age that we find ourselves in, we have, it's almost a double-edged sword, I guess, because people are becoming more educated. They're curious. They're asking questions, and with that access to information comes awareness, which is super important. And now people understand that they, as a designer, for instance, hopefully there's designers listening, but, where are my stones coming from and what's the story behind them? Do I have a responsibility to ask those questions and is it going to be just about, what my costs are or what, or is there a further purpose to this whole thing, And so to circle back and, I feel that we're in a position to kind of begin to tell those stories. So the double-edged sword part is that in this era of access to knowledge and education and just free, it also becomes a free-for-all. So finding authenticity within the interweb and who do you trust, and who do you, there's a lot of greenwashing, and for lack of a better term, I guess that's what brings me back to this group, is that we feel that what we're trying to do is build a trust within the community and within the industry that we're people that you can come to and that we have a moral compass behind what we're doing. And even though we come from completely diverse world experiences, we actually, we are united with a common goal. And that is to give a message to, ask those questions and really investigate your sourcing and the impact that it has on the origin, the land, the people of where it all comes from.
I
just went on a rant, but
yeah, no, that's great. I think our audience probably agrees, no matter where they are in their journey. I think, and I do like to think that it's a journey. It's not a magical sort of pinnacle that you reach and you check a bunch of boxes and now you're responsible or you're ethical.
Right.
I do think that we have to be careful of the words we use. Words are important. Words are the basis kind of for our actions, right? So you said something about like there's awareness and then next comes action, right? Like you have an awareness now of like there are issues, there are problems, there are things you need to be aware of. Now you actually have to go do your due diligence and you have to ask those questions and you have to, I think 2020 has shown more than maybe any other year before. You have to, I think it's important to align with those who reflect your values. And so, you have to kind of do a little soul searching maybe to figure out what those values are, but then go pursue those and actually align yourself with people who are maybe, and like to go back to this group, everybody does things in a slightly different way in different regions of the world. But the uniting factor is this, I think, I think it's a drive for like to respect the human part of the element and the human supply chain, and to give acknowledgement and support where we need to for those things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I have to say, like, I'm wearing this ring that actually has, it's kind of hard to see, but these are Paraibas.
Oh.
These are Paraibas from the original mine that I actually acquired from your dad, Brian.
If you said original mine, I was like, he must have got that from us.
Yeah, so I'm a sucker for this, the origin story, right? So these are original Paraibas paired with an Anza Podparasha sapphire. So
oh man, speaking my language.
So like I'm physically wearing a piece of, kind of your history, but it goes beyond story. Like there's actually, like, your family has really not just talked the talk, but walked the walk for a long time in Brazil. And I know you've spent time in those communities, and like you described jewelry as kind of magical, I think, earlier. And, part of that magic is in like where the gems come from and who they come from, and how they kind of evolve. And luckily you've had a very transparent vision of what that journey is. Yeah. How are you involved in the jewelry business right now? Like what's your kind of role right now?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. We are jewelers. Exactly. We've always been, our whole family. We're a family. I always emphasize that. We're a family business. We're all, doing kind of different aspects to the business. And it was actually, I would say, I guess it was about 5 years ago that I started Quore, which really is just an extension of Nature's Geometry. But the idea of Quore was to create, it was basically taking all of the things that we've always done things that are kind of one-off or eccentric, and I wanted to bring it all together and create something that was accessible, and we could bring it to retail market, and it's been a beautiful journey for sure. And I do feel very fortunate that I have that history with the land and the mining and the stones, and I've even cut my own stones and done.
Of course you have. Of course.
I've done, and it's. I know that that's a real privilege, and not everyone has that experience as a designer. So I'm very grateful for that, and I would say, I guess it has broadened my perspective on the whole journey of from mine to market. I guess jewelry is something that has always been a passion, and yet it's a challenge at the same time, because I have this other part of me that's like, well, this is a luxury world, and nobody needs jewelry. It's a total luxurious thing, and yes, it makes people feel good, and there's all this magic that surrounds it, and it's sentimental, and there's this all these other emotional kind of bonds that are attached to jewelry. But for me, it wasn't until I was able to attach the ethical side to this and put it together that it gave a meaning that I was ready to be behind, I guess.
That is a perfect segue, because I was wondering about your perspective. So you're in a way, you're an emerging designer, right? Emerging jeweler in this sort of landscape, with all of that entails, right? Like navigating brand and like social media and things like that. but you also come from this like place where you do actually know where gemstones come from. Like you have this incredible family history. So I'm wondering, when I hear people like your dad, Eric Braunwart of Columbia Gem House, talk about, where we've come in the industry, like 15, 20 years ago, no one was talking about this. And actually you were a pariah if you actually brought it up, and you were making other people look bad if you brought up the idea of jewelry. Where does this actually come from? Who's benefiting? Who's making the money in the supply chain? So I'm wondering, with your unique perspective, where you're both like emerging designer, you're also like, let's face it, you are, like a younger consumer as well, right? Like you're kind of a different demographic than myself or Brian, and how do you feel the industry is going? Like, are you hopeful when you look at things, like when you think about this like idea of people talking about ethics? Are you hopeful? What is your perspective? Because some of us have been working in it for a few years or for many years, but I'm curious like what your perspective is, because I think you have a really unique position in the industry.
Thanks again. Yes, that's a really good question. I feel, I will say that I'll bring it back to last year at the Ethical Gem Fair, which I think a lot of you that might be listening were maybe there or heard about it. And it was at that show that it gave me a lot of hope, that I felt that we were kind of headed in the right direction by listening to all of you and hearing that. I think that the demand has been there for a while, for this type of thing that we're doing, but it hadn't really formulated into a place to go. And like no one really, yes, people are starting to be aware. Like I'm a designer. I wanna do things ethically. I wanna know where my stones are coming from and be able to tell that story to my customer or whatever. But no one really, it's a difficult world to navigate, right? Because it's so complex. And when I came together with all of you, which almost was by accident, because my dad was like, we're doing this thing, and I don't have
this thing, doing a thing.
I'm actually going to be at the other booth, and I was like, I want to be part of the ethical group, so I'll handle that booth.
Even though you grew up in GJX, you still.
Oh yeah, I was so ready to be part of this. Yeah, and I was really excited about it, and I think we all went in there. Last year was our first. I know. Stuart and Kathy and Ian have been doing it in the UK, and so they had a little bit of history there. But it was our first year in the US,
and that was my first time showing anywhere. Like
I know for
ever,
you,
like
exactly.
ever. So officially,
I know, and it was exciting, and I think we all had this. What was really pleasant about it was that you all came in, the designers all came in, and other people from the trade, and there was a feeling in the air of wow, this is what we've been waiting for, and it had this really just. I think we all kept saying this is such a good energy in here that I think we're onto something, which is why that even during the pandemic, we've all been meeting weekly almost for a year, just trying to keep the glue together, because I think we all, like I said earlier, that even though we all come from completely different backgrounds and world experience and regions of the world, time zones, and do business completely differently, that we all understood that there was an opportunity here, and we cared. We cared to keep it together, and I feel proud of this group, and I feel happy that we were able to, even in the last minute, pull together this virtual show, which is completely new for all of us.
Yeah.
I am not a digital person. I'll say that right now. I know you come from a blogging background.
Yeah, but like, you know, I feel like, you know, 2020 drug us into, you know, actual 21st century communication. Like, finally, as an industry, we are slow to change, and this forced all of us to actually rethink how we communicate and not to be maybe quite so dependent on those in-person kind of exchanges, which, to your point about last year and the Ethical Gem Fair, I would not trade that for anything. I think that was an amazing experience. And it just makes me more optimistic when I know that you are hopeful, because I tend to be an eternal optimist. So like, it's just nice to know that someone else kind of feels the same way. And I think like you, it wasn't like, our group is amazing, but what was really important and really, I think, illuminating was that all the designers that were coming in really asked great, insightful questions. We had incredible interactions with, you know, with every single designer and maker who came in to the venue, and we had meaningful conversations. And it reminded me that there's a community here. Like, it's not just, you know, gem dealers and designers. Like, there's a lot of crossover, and there's a lot of shared values, and a lot of I think there's a huge basis for community there.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. Absolutely.
So, yeah, it was a good experience. I'm glad we are attempting to do something virtually, and we'll learn from this and kind of iterate and go from there. But we also had talked a little bit over the last couple of days, just in like table talk, and, you know, sort of a little bit about women and the industry, and kind of, you know, I feel like there's even more of a presence now than there was even a few years ago. Walking through, like, say, Tucson, for example, you know, a lot of the dealers themselves are there. It's fairly male dominated, right? So, but I feel like things are changing. I definitely think that a lot of the designers we've met either last year or here in our virtual environment have been women. So that's really amazing to see, like, a huge generation of women designers. But also just elsewhere in the industry. I don't know how it is in Brazil, like women miners. Brian, I think, mentioned in one of his, maybe it was this morning's talk, about you know, the mine dumps the tailings, and the women come and kind of make it kind of like a social gathering while they're picking through the tailings. So I don't know if you've seen a shift, or maybe wondering how you in your business might like empower women, maybe even women of color, like, to participate more. And how do you see that? Are you seeing that changing, or how do you see that sort of evolving?
Yeah, I love that question, and especially coming from you, because I feel like I want to look to you at what you're doing. It is very much in Brazil. That's what I can speak on as far as real experience in the mine region there. There are women miners, but it is, of course, predominantly men. It is a dangerous and very physically laborious thing. So the women tend to not have as much opportunity, I guess, when it comes, especially if you're speaking of these rural artisanal mining kind of regions. There's not a whole lot of option. It's not like you can go get a job to do anything, you know. So part of for instance, our initiative in Bahia, some of you may have heard my father speak this morning, and he touched on it. And if not, I'll bring it back up. Is that one of the things we want to do is the lapidary school and education, and being able to create an alternative an alternative way, skill that they can build on, that they can add value to the material at the source, and they are part of the process if they aren't interested in the physical mining aspect. There are women that mine, and they're amazing. But normally it is the men, and in Brazil, the gender roles are very kind of still defined in that aspect. As he mentioned, the women go and they get all the tailings, and then they have their own way to make money off of that material. Mm-hmm. But if we can build a school that they're able to not only learn about the sorting and the value of stones, and also cutting, lapidary, they'll be able to include a new skill that is valuable for their own, they can make their own money. And generally speaking, I'm going to speak very generally here, but the women have been known to be better at managing money because they have the community in mind. And so I think it's a very important role, actually, to empower the women in these mining regions in whatever, you want to tread lightly. You don't want to, you want to respect cultural norms and things that are part of, you don't want to come in and say, oh, you should do this and you need to do that. That's not the way to go about things, but to provide certain tools and things that can enhance and increase the community as a whole and be inclusive to women. That's kind of more the angle that at least we're trying to do. And I think inclusivity, when it comes to recognizing, also what they're interested in, do they, what part of the process do they want to be part of,
I think that's an important dialogue to have. And Stuart and I spoke about Moyo. Was that yesterday?
Yes, and that's what I was going to
segue. Last week or today? I don't know. But
I wanted to segue because I'm super just in awe of what you've done there. And if anyone missed that talk, definitely look into Moyo and what Monica and Stuart and everyone involved has been doing there, because it's such a beautiful project, and I personally would like to be involved. So
be careful what you wish for. Now I know. And
I want to go and learn from what you guys are doing there, because I think it's truly a beautiful model. So definitely give us a little couple minutes on that.
So you mentioned that women women are good stewards of the resources, right? So when you there's a reason why Moyo focused on women in the mining communities. And that is because they do tend to be the keepers of they will make sure that the school fees get paid, and they will make sure that the kids can have what they need to actually, go to primary school, which is free, but all the uniforms have to be paid for, all of the books have to be paid for. So women are the absolute wheels of the machinery in these communities, absolutely 100%. And I don't think that is radically different from Brazil to East Africa. Again, I don't want to make overgeneralizations, but I think in general, women are the stewards of their communities, and they will be good. They will take care of those resources. And when we started out Moyo, we actually spent, a full day in one of the villages in their school, and 50 or 60 women came, and through PACT and TAWOMA, the Tanzania Women Miners Association, we had a dialogue with the women to find out what are your challenges? Because they might be very different than the men artisanal miners. Their experiences are different. They're even more on the periphery of, here's artisanal mining, and the women are on the outside. They're the ones going through the tailings. They're the ones using the broken tools because that's what's been cast off and that's what they have access to. I've even talked to some people who are really surprised that there are women mining, digging in East Africa. I'm like, this is an economic choice. Like there are, I think it was Monica Gashui of, she's in Nairobi. Susan Wheeler has partnered with her to co-produce some conferences both in Nairobi and in Chicago. And she kind of described it as there's an opportunity of there's different levels of opportunity. There's opportunity that you get to reach for and go do. And then there's opportunity that is just the reality of existence. And the reality is that is one of the ways that they can make money there is to actually and provide for their families. And some of them, maybe their husbands were a miner, past tense are a miner. Some of them are farmers part of the time. Some of them are miners part of the time. And they go back and forth between rainy season and dry season. And frankly, whatever can kind of net them the most money so that they can actually feed their families. So women have to sometimes mine. It may not be their first choice, but we wanted to actually ask them, what do you want from a market? What would be useful to you? What would you want? And there were some really interesting things that came out of asking them that. One of it was they wanted mobile payments. They wanted now granted, most of them don't have smartphones, but M-Pesa and Tigo payments are fairly common in that area. So if you do have a phone, they get to control their money, right? There's no banks in Kalolani, Tanzania. So this was a way for them to actually take control of their destiny a little bit.
Have a direct source. Yeah.
So part of it is just asking them and having a dialogue about what is it that you want from this. We don't have to be, the saviors here. We will help you. We will help empower you, but you tell us how we can go about that. So I think that's an important consideration when you're talking about empowering any community. But the other thing that struck me when you were talking is the lapidary aspect and making sure that maybe they don't want to dig. Maybe that is not really what they want to do, but they have no other options. But what if they could grade and sort? What if they could process? What if they could do, they would much rather do beating and drilling than perhaps digging. And so, and I will say this again, a little bit of a generalization, but in the lapidary school in Arusha that we have supported, women tend to finish that program faster and with more skill at the end of that program than a lot of the young men who go through the process. So women are ready, willing, able. It might even be something that they could do on their own time, which when they're caregivers, that's a big, and what we found in Africa was they're caregivers, not just to children, but also to older generation too. So they're kind of in the middle and they're having to do caregiving on both sides. And that's a huge impediment for them to getting to the market. So anyway, I could talk about this all day, but I think people probably want to probably get to the tables and maybe get a little more in depth in various conversations. But I think hopefully we are making some strides in really thinking about what truly empowers women in the supply chain, and asking them, what do you want? What do you need? How do we get you the tools and the training to kind of do what you want to do? I think that's a really good way to approach it. And we're still a ways from that with Moyo, where we've got our markets down. We figured out COVID and remote buying, but now it's time to invest. And I think there's a few people in the room, so to speak, who are really passionate about getting equipment and training to these communities so that everyone can benefit in their own country in their own region from the materials. We all should not be, you know, we don't have to control that resource. They can have a lot more control over that.
Absolutely. Yes. And please, yes, visit Gem Legacy. I spoke to her, Rachel, earlier today. Amazing work there. And anyone who wants to, you know, put sort of a charity behind what they're doing, Gem Legacy is providing that. And it's a beautiful thing. And you should all check it out. Check out all the tables. Everyone is amazing in this group. I'm truly honored to even be part of it. Everyone is really walking the talk, and I encourage you all to move around and meet everyone. Just talk to everyone, because it's a
I learned so much just with this conversation. So, like there's so much to learn, and I'm really happy I got to hear a little bit more of your story too. So
thank you.
Hopefully everyone can go join us at the tables. It's really a great, I don't know if everyone's familiar, if you're just joining this event, as soon as the session is over, in the left nav, there's a lounge button. If you click on lounge, you can see the tables that are branded with the different suppliers. You can go check it out. Also, to Quendi's point, Gem Legacy Rachel has been here at a table, and Cecilia Gardner was here with Jewelry Industry Summit earlier today too. I don't know if she'll be back or not, but we really appreciate everyone just showing up. Just continue to show up, continue to like ask your questions, one foot in front of the other, right? We're all in this together, and thank you.
It's new. We want all the feedback that you can give us as well, like about this whole platform and experience. So come visit us at our booths.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Quendi.
Thank you, Monica. That was so nice to chat.
It was nice. Yeah. It was great. Thank you.